Ringo's mustache. In Mexico, in a small town called Santa Maria, there was a bar named Three Cheeses. It was one of the most famous mouse bars in the world because the most famous mariachi guitarist, Chico, lived and played there. Chico was a thin, brown mouse with long whiskers, a pink nose, and big ears. He was the grandson of a famous guitar maker and had played guitar since he could remember. Chico's music was heard all over the world, and it was hard to find an empty seat for the parties at Three Cheeses. Mice from everywhere came to enjoy Chico's music and his two bandmates, Pablo on drums and Pancho on castanets. One day, while Chico and his band were playing for a big crowd, one of his guitar strings made strange sounds. Soon, the string broke, and the party ended sadly. Chico was very worried because this wasn't just any string. It was made from a mountain lion's whisker. The string had been on the guitar since the time when Chico's grandfather had pulled a whisker from one of the scariest mountain lions named Ringo and put it on his guitar as a trophy. Ringo still roamed around Santa Maria and was still the wildest mountain lion and the scariest creature in all of Mexico. Chico knew he had to find the string and face the scary Ringo, repeating his grandfather's bravery. The next morning, in the cold dawn before the sun rose from behind the mountains, Chico, Pancho, and Pablo set out to meet the scary Ringo and pluck a whisker. After walking for a long time, they found themselves in front of a big cave. As they got closer to the cave entrance, their legs shook more and more with fear. When they reached the entrance, Pancho and Pablo decided to wait outside, so Chico had to go in alone to face the scary Ringo. Slowly and fearfully, he went deeper into the cave and suddenly saw Ringo sleeping sweetly. He was a huge desert lion, as big as he was scary. Chico, very carefully and without making the slightest sound, reached into his little bag and took out the scissors he was going to use to cut one of Ringo's whiskers. He slowly approached Ringo, and just as he was about to cut the whisker, Ringo jumped up, caught Chico by the tail with his right paw, and with his left paw, he took out a razor-sharp claw and put it under Chico's throat. At that moment, Pancho and Pablo screamed in fear, and Ringo turned to look at them as they ran away. Chico fearfully looked at Ringo, who asked with sleepy eyes and a hoarse voice, "What are you looking for here, little mouse?" Chico, stammering, introduced himself and began to explain that he had come for a string for his guitar and that he wasn't like the guitar maker mouse from the legend who had defeated Ringo in a fight, but just an ordinary guitarist. Ringo laughed sweetly at this, released Chico, and said, "Listen, little mouse. I don't know you, but I've heard of you. Your grandfather, the guitar maker, and I were very good friends and often spent time together. We never fought, and the whisker on your guitar was a gift to your grandfather, who brought me the most delicious cheeses on every visit. In return, I gave him whiskers for the guitars he made. Now I'll give you a whisker for your guitar, and you'll come on Sunday to play at my birthday party." Chico, overjoyed, agreed and promised not only to come but also to bring some of the best cheese in Santa Maria for Ringo's guests. Ringo smiled, pulled out his longest and most beautiful whisker, and gave it to Chico. Chico put it in his little bag, said goodbye to Ringo, and headed back to his home in Three Cheeses. Soon after, Chico, Pablo, and Pancho threw the best and happiest birthday party for the scariest lion in all of Mexico.
The Big Giant. Way up in the mountains, above the clouds, there lived some giants in big warm caves. One of these giants was named Gore. He was very big and had a long red beard. He wore fuzzy clothes and big fuzzy boots. When he walked, the whole mountain would shake. Gore had a nice cave home. He made special shelves in his walls to keep his food, his plants, and his books. He loved to read. Deep in his cave, he had a cozy bedroom. It was warm when it was cold outside, and nice and cool in summer. Gore worked very hard. He dug tunnels in the mountain and found lots of gold. He used this gold to buy food and clothes from the people who lived in the village below. Every summer, these people would climb up the mountain to bring things to the giants. There was a big lake on Gore's mountain. In summer, it had lots and lots of fish. Gore would catch fish all summer long. He dried them to save for winter. He liked to make yummy soup with the dried fish. It was his favorite food. One day, while Gore was fast asleep in his bed, some hungry wolves sneaked into his cave. They were very quiet and very smart. They knew they were in a giant's home, so they tiptoed around. The sneaky wolves took all of Gore's food, even his dried fish. A few hours later, Gore woke up. He sniffed the air like a big dog. "Huh," he said. He got up and went to check his food. Oh no! The wolves had taken everything. He ran outside to look for them, but they were long gone. Gore went back to his cave and sat down to think. He decided to go fishing in the frozen lake the next morning. So he tried all day to catch fish, but he couldn't catch any. That night, Gore went to bed very hungry. He decided to go to the village the next day to buy food. In the morning, he got up early. He made some hot tea with snow. Then he put on his warm clothes, took his bag of gold, and his special rope with 4 hooks. The snow was very deep, taller than most houses. Gore's feet kept sinking in the snow, so he had to walk very slowly. As he went down the mountain, the snow got less deep. He was in such a hurry that he didn't see he was walking right into a swamp. Suddenly, his feet got stuck. The more he tried to get out, the more he sank. The swamp was full of special sand that pulls you in when you move. But Gore was clever. He took his rope and threw it around a big tree branch. He tied the rope around his middle and tried to pull himself out. But he was so big that the tree started to crack. He knew he had to stay very still. "Help! Help!" He called out loudly. He hoped someone from the village would hear him. Soon, a little girl with pink cheeks peeked from behind a tree. She smiled and hid again. Then she peeked out and asked, "Who are you?" "I'm the giant from the mountain." "I'm Anna," she said, still hiding behind the tree. "Why are you so big?" Said the giant, thinking hard. "So I can reach all the chestnuts in the tall trees." "Ooh, I love chestnuts," said Anna. Me too, said Gore with a big smile. Can I help you? Asked little Anna. Gore smiled and asked Anna to go home and tell her mom and dad that the big giant was stuck in the swamp. Okay, said Anna, and she ran home. Very soon, lots of people came from the village with their horses. They threw ropes to Gore and the horses helped pull him out. Gore told them about the wolves taking his food. He asked if they could spare some food to last until spring. The kind villagers brought him lots of food. Gore was so happy and thankful. Before he left, he gave little Anna a big hug. He secretly put some pieces of gold in her coat pocket. Then he said goodbye to everyone, picked up all his food, and walked back up to his home on top of the mountain. Brando and Bronco and the Sweet Shop. On the corner of John Kennedy Street at number 7, two cheerful cockroaches named Brando and Bronco made their home in an old abandoned trash bin. Best friends since they were tiny tots, they did everything together, munching on pie crusts, sipping on juice droplets, and every night, sneaking into nearby houses to feast on leftovers and watch movies while the humans slept. When darkness fell and people drifted off to dreamland, the tiny duo would scurry out of their trash bin, their tummies rumbling with hunger. They'd dash toward house number 7, their favorite spot in the whole neighborhood. Though they sometimes visited other houses for a change of scenery, they always returned to lucky number 7. They had nibbled a special entrance hole into this house, their very own secret doorway. Sometimes for extra fun, they'd slip through open windows or doors left slightly ajar. On special adventure nights, they'd hunt for new paths to test their amazing acrobatic skills. Night after night, Brando and Bronco would quietly sneak into the house for their evening banquet. With curious appetites, they loved to sample every morsel they could find: sandwich bits, pizza edges, cookies, banana peels, but nothing made their little hearts flutter more than discovering forgotten treats like pies, cookies, or donuts. When the first light of dawn peeked through the windows, they'd scurry back home, careful not to be spotted and squashed by a slipper, because nobody wants cockroaches as house guests. One morning, returning from the nightly adventure, Brando and Bronco discovered their trash bin home completely stuffed with garbage, buried under a huge black plastic bag brimming with cockroach delicacies. They decided to explore this treasure trove and planned to hop out when they heard the garbage truck rumbling down the street. While digging through the rubbish, Bronco struck gold, a massive chunk of chocolate. He called Brando over, and the two friends attacked the sweet treat with gusto. After gobbling it up, tired from their night of feasting and exploring, they curled up side by side and drifted off to sleep. Bang! A sudden noise jolted them awake. Before they could scamper away, the garbage bag closed around them, tumbled over, and all the trash came crashing down, burying the tiny friends. They called out to each other, scrambling through mountains of garbage until they finally reunited. Working together, Brando and Bronco chewed through the plastic bag, creating an escape hole only to find themselves inside a trailer piled high with mountains upon mountains of garbage. "Run for it!" Bronco cried out. Though the garbage truck was still rumbling along, they didn't think twice. They leaped right out. With a soft thud, they landed smack in the middle of downtown, where blinding lights flashed, strange noises blared, and dangers seemed to be waiting around every corner. "This doesn't look anything like our neighborhood," Brando whispered, gawking at the towering skyscrapers and streets packed with honking cars. "We need to find a hiding spot. Quick!" They scampered away from the busy main street as fast as their tiny legs could carry them. Just around the corner, a familiar sight made their antennae twitch with joy: a row of plump trash bins. Even better, they spotted a cardboard box nearby. The two friends darted inside and finally caught their breath. "Now what, Bronco?" Brando asked, his voice shaky. "How on earth will we ever get back home?" "First things first," Bronco replied with a reassuring pat on Brando's back. "We'll wait until the stars come out, then try to find our way home in the dark when it's safer for little bugs like us." So they huddled together in their cardboard shelter, occasionally peeking out through a tiny rip in the corner, watching as the sun slowly dipped below the horizon. Once darkness blanketed the city, they cautiously tiptoed out of their hideaway and scurried off in the opposite direction from where the noisy garbage truck had carried them. As they tiptoed through the shadows, tiny Brando's antenna wiggled. "Do you hear that?" he whispered to Bronco. Something was following them. They turned around with scared little eyes, but couldn't see anything in the dark. They scurried forward a bit more when, tap, 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 there was that spooky sound again. The cockroach's 6 skinny legs started to shake like jelly. When they peeked behind them, they saw something that made them freeze: a big black cat with only one eye, staring right at them. Eek. They squealed, not even checking if the cat wanted to play or pounce. They zoomed away super duper fast. Just when they thought they might have to run forever, they spotted a huge gate. What good luck! The gate had a teeny tiny gap at the bottom. Quick as a wink, they squeezed through the opening, flopped down, and tried to catch their breath, going huff, puff, huff, puff. When they felt brave again, the two friends stood up to see where they were. Their little bug eyes grew wide as saucers. Could it be? Yes, they had found the most magical place ever: a sweet shop. Right before the twitchy antennae was a wonderland of treats. Colorful donuts, gooey pastries, and sparkly candies sat in pretty rows, just waiting to be tasted. "Wow," Bronco gasped, forgetting all about being scared. "Look at those chocolate donuts. And those gooey cream ones. Ooh. And the jam-filled ones look like little pillows. And those pink strawberry ones are so pretty." Brando smiled the biggest smile ever and dashed toward the donut counter. Soon they were having a teeny tiny taste party, taking little nibbles from fluffy donuts and tiny licks of rainbow frostings. Everywhere they looked was another yummy treasure. They bounced around like they were on a sugary trampoline, not knowing which scrumptious treat to try next. It didn't take them long to fill their tiny tummies, and oh my, did they overeat. When not even a crumb more could fit in their round little bellies, they waddled under the shelves and fell fast asleep. When they woke up, morning sunshine was already streaming through the windows. Suddenly, they heard something that made them freeze like popsicles. "Wait a second. What's that noise?" Brando squeaked. "The garbage truck," Bronco shouted. And together they scrambled toward the door. As they zoomed past, they nearly bumped into the shopkeeper, who spotted them and began screaming and hopping around in fear. But Brando and Bronco were too excited to notice. They had eyes only for the garbage truck. There it was, right across the street, collecting trash from the nearby shops. Brando and Bronco spotted the truck and gave each other a knowing look. "Our ride has arrived," Bronco announced, and they both dashed across the street to climb aboard the truck that would most likely be heading back to their neighborhood. They made it just in time. With their sticky little feet, they quickly scurried up the side of the truck. After a short, bumpy ride, they were back in their familiar neighborhood. The truck stopped right in front of their home, and Bronco and Brando hopped off right away and headed straight for their trash can. Once safely home, they crawled into the cozy beds made from matchboxes and drifted off into sweet dreams.
Lily's Crazy City Adventure. On a sunny spring day, near 3 big windmills in a colorful meadow, people gathered for an outdoor adventure. They laughed, talked, and had fun, waking up little fox Lily from her cozy home nearby. Lily, a small red fox, slowly woke up and peeked out to see what was happening. She saw people enjoying food on a blue blanket but was too scared to get too close. So, she watched them quietly from behind a bush, curious but cautious. She saw the people and smelled the aroma coming from the food laid out on the blanket. Lily became curious and wanted to know what delicious things were on the blanket. But Lily didn't dare get too close because she was very afraid of people. So she sat back for a long time, quietly observing the people on their picnic in nature. Suddenly, Lily noticed that the people began gathering their things into a big woven basket and started strolling around the meadow, picking flowers and catching butterflies. Lily cleverly waited for them to move farther away from their belongings and then, sneaking from tree to tree, she crept up to the food basket. She sniffed around the basket and, intoxicated by the smell of food, slowly climbed in and began rummaging through the food, eating whatever she liked. Lily quickly got full, but she didn't want to stop and kept eating and eating. After she ate too much and couldn't fit anything else into her mouth, she sat down to rest. Content and satisfied, she fell asleep in the basket. The people soon returned, gathered their things, put them in the car, and went home with Lily, who was sleeping sweetly in their basket. When the car arrived in the city, all sorts of strange sounds filled the air, roaring, banging, and clattering noises Lily had never heard in her life, making her ears twitch even in her sleep. The people parked the car outside their house and went inside, leaving the basket and Lily in the car. Lily was startled awake by a loud honk from another car. Confused, she leapt out of the basket. In a second, she looked around and saw she was trapped inside the car, so she began to yelp and scratch at the windows. Frantically scratching and jumping around the car, she searched for a way out. In her panic, she accidentally pressed a button with her paw, and one of the windows started to lower. As soon as the window opened, Lily jumped out of the car and started running wildly down the street, where all kinds of cars, buses, and trucks were moving, looking scary and making a terrible noise. Lily spotted a bush and dashed to hide in it. She shivered, sitting there scared, her heart pounding in her ears, and her paws trembling like leaves. Gradually, she realized how alone and far from home she was, but she didn't know what to do except stay hidden in the bush. She thought and decided the smartest thing to do was to wait until dark and then try to find her way home unnoticed. After a long time, when darkness fell, the streets were almost empty of people and vehicles, and Lily decided to leave the bush and see where she was. She walked through the streets, looking around, but the whole space felt like a giant maze of concrete without an end or an exit. Suddenly, loud fireworks started appearing in the sky, exploding into various shapes after reaching a certain height. Scared by the loud noises, Lily began to run, looking for shelter, and ended up at the edge of the city. Looking around, she didn't spot the windmills near her home anywhere. With tears in her eyes, she sadly realized she was on the wrong side of the city. Gathering her courage, she slowly started searching for the other side of the city, hoping it would be the right way out. Lost in her thoughts, she bumped into a puppy carrying a few sausages in its mouth, running away from a man shouting and chasing after it. They looked at each other and started running together because the man chasing them seemed very angry. When they reached safety, they introduced themselves and became friends. The puppy's name was Gina, and she was a stray who knew the whole city by heart. Lily shared all her troubles with Gina, who immediately offered to take her to the edge of the city where the windmills could be seen. They shared a sausage each and set off on their journey. When they reached the edge of the city, dawn was breaking, and in the distance, they could see the 3 windmills near Lily's home. Overjoyed, Lily hugged Gina and thanked her for the help and the sausage. Lily then ran across the meadows towards her home. When she arrived at the windmills, she knew she was finally safe. She took a deep breath, sighed with relief, and then crawled into her burrow to rest and recover from the crazy city adventure.
Stoich, the painter. In a small town, there lived a painter named Stoich. Stoich was one of 3 painters in the town, but unlike the others, he had a helper named Mayo. Mayo was a dog, just 5 years old, with dark gray fur, a wet nose, and cheerful eyes. From a young age, Mayo followed his friend, Uncle Stoich, everywhere. Mayo quickly learned all the tools and colors used in the painting trade, and within just 1 year, he became a true apprentice. He always stood faithfully by Master Stoich's side, ready to hand him whatever he needed. They communicated through whistles, with each color or tool having its own distinct whistle. Whenever Mayo heard the whistle, he would immediately run to fetch the tool or the paint can that master needed. One summer, while Mayo and Stoich were painting a child's room, something scary happened. Stoich was all set up for work and began painting carelessly. Mayo, feeling bored after a short breakfast, fell asleep right at the room's doorstep. Suddenly, he was woken up by the whistle for blue paint. Mayo jumped up, ran to the paint cans, grabbed the blue paint, and placed it where the white paint should have been. Stoich, without looking, dipped his brush in the blue paint and smeared it on the white wall. When he realized what color he had painted the wall with, Stoich covered his face with his hand and began to turn red. The room was supposed to be white, and he painted it blue. He sternly looked at Mayo, who was confused and didn't understand what was happening. While Stoich tried to understand why his best friend and co-worker had caused such a mess, they heard the whistle for blue paint again from outside. "Aha!" exclaimed Stoich, and together with Mayo, they went outside where they saw another person walking down the street, using their whistle for blue paint. Stoich returned to the room, patted Mayo, and sat down for a moment to think about how to fix the mistake they had made. After a short thought, he took some bookbinding tape and covered the area painted with blue. Then, he grabbed the small brushes and other paints and got to work. In a few hours, Stoich painted a beautiful landscape on the wall that looked just like looking through a window at a magnificent waterfall. When the homeowners saw the work of the master and his assistant, they were thrilled and impressed. They even prepared a nice dinner and a cheerful gathering to celebrate. In the end, Mayo also received a gift of toys, biscuits, and various treats for home. And so, everyone was happy, cheerful, and satisfied.
The Bunny and the Magical Snowman. In one little forest, between the roots of a huge century-old oak tree, a small snow-white bunny with gray tail had made its home. Every day, the bunny would hop through the woods, gathering tiny roots, hay, twigs, and seeds to prepare for the first snow day and stay comfy and cozy at home. In its bunny hole, it arranged a pantry for food, and even after filling it to the brim, it felt assured that it would have enough food until the first day of spring. One day, searching through the forest, the bunny unexpectedly reached its end. A tall and long fence of wooden rods stood in front of him. The bunny was curious to find out what lay behind the fence, so it started digging a tunnel underneath. After digging and wriggling through, the bunny found itself in a garden with all kinds of vegetables: lettuce, carrots, beets, leeks, pumpkins, and many other delicious things it had never seen before. Happily, it immediately hopped towards the biggest lettuce in the garden. It nibbled, crunched, and in no time bit off the lettuce from the stem and started rolling it back towards its burrow. However, when it reached the fence, the bunny realized that the tunnel was too narrow for such a big lettuce, so it had to widen it. Sighing sadly, it got to work. It dug, and even after getting quite tired, the tunnel became wide enough to fit the lettuce. The bunny rolled the lettuce through the tunnel, but now a whole forest stood in front of it. It rolled and rolled almost the entire day, until it reached its home by nightfall. When it was time to bring the lettuce into its burrow, the bunny realized that the lettuce was too big for the entrance of its bunny hole. The bunny thought and decided to cut it into pieces. Throughout the night, it nibbled on the leaves of the lettuce and arranged them in its pantry. When done, it entered its burrow, lay on its little bed, covered itself with a knitted blanket, and fell asleep from exhaustion. It slept through the entire day, and the following night, the bunny woke up the next morning still very tired, every muscle aching, and realized that handling vegetables required a lot of work. It decided that it's better to get carrots from the garden. The next morning, the sun shining brightly, the bunny hopped to the garden fence, wriggled through the tunnel, and when it emerged, it was in shock. The garden was empty, all the vegetables were harvested, and the ground was completely overturned. The little bunny sat down, sighed deeply, and looked disappointedly into the empty garden. Suddenly, it spotted some carrots. It immediately ran towards them, but a strange, invisible wall hit its nose. The carrots were inside, and it was outside. The bunny wiggled its nose left, right, and began thinking about how to overcome the invisible barrier. It went back home and started thinking, trying to figure out what to do since it had never seen a window before. Tired from thinking, it fell asleep. In the morning, a strong light and the scent of winter woke it up. It hurried outside and saw that snow had fallen overnight, and winter had arrived. So, if it wanted a peaceful and beautiful winter with enough food, it would have to fill its pantry in the next few days. Without thinking, it came back to the garden once again. On snow it spotted 3 snowballs arranged like a person, with an old pot as a hat, a red scarf around the neck, a broom on one side, little pieces of charcoal as eyes, and a carrot as a nose. A snowman. Happily, the bunny went to the snowman, grabbed its nose, put the carrot in its mouth, and started running quickly towards its home, as if being chased by wolves. It entered its burrow, placed the carrot in the pantry, and went back outside to gather some berries. The next day, the bunny went to the garden again and found another carrot on the snowman. It grabbed it and went back to its home. And so, for several days, the bunny visited the garden, stealing the snowman's nose every day. What kind of magic is this? Wondered the bunny, wiggling its pink nose left right, left right. Then, it hopped to the snowman, took the carrot again, and placed it in the pantry after running with it. When the bunny noticed that its pantry was full and had enough food for the entire winter, it was delighted. The next morning, the bunny decided to visit the magical snowman again and thank it for all the carrots. Carrying a colorful pot it had found in the forest, the bunny went to the magical snowman, who seemed to enjoy such fashionable accessories. Upon reaching the garden, the bunny saw the snowman once again with a carrot nose. With immense gratitude, the bunny left the pot beside the snowman. It wiggled its nose left right, smiled, and hopped back to its warm burrow, full of food.